I grew up in a church that did not follow the church year. Well, that's not exactly true. We had Christmas and we had Easter. And then the other 50 Sundays were sort of open season, for whatever seemed to happen. But eventually I came to learn that there is such thing as a church year. Now, what we knew when I was growing up in the church, we knew that there was this thing called Lent, but that's what Catholics did, And we thought it was kind of silly because they would give up things for Lent, like chocolate. And we thought, well, if it's worth giving up during Lent, it's worth giving up all the time. So we didn't follow the church year. But then in time I came to see the value of a church year that helps us to see the full orb of the gospel message. And that's what the church year attempts to do. Church year begins in Advent, those 4 weeks, those 4 Sundays when we get ready with the lights. We get ready for the light that comes on Christmas. Oh, I loved being here Christmas Eve. It was such a wonderful moment. The sanctuary, as you recall, went dark, but we took a candle from the Christ candle, and from my candle we lighted each other's candles, and the room filled with this marvelous light. I love that moment with you. Such a precious moment. And then we sang Silent Night, and I would lift my candle and you would lift your candle, and the light would shine through the room, and we rejoiced together Christmas Eve in this place with that light, that marvelous light that comes into our lives with Christ. What a beautiful moment. I'll never forget it. But have you noticed that Christmastide, is such a short time? Because on January 6th, just a few days after Christmas, we celebrate what's called Epiphany. And we symbolize that by reading the story and hearing again about the Magi who find the Christ child and bring their gifts. And the Magi are Gentiles. You see, the light that comes at Christmas cannot stay in one place. Only for a few moments do we let it stay in one place, because the light that comes in Christmas is meant for the whole created order, for all people. The Magi were outsiders. They were from a faraway place. They were Gentiles. And so they're coming and worshiping the light there in Bethlehem. Helps us to see that the light is for the whole world. Epiphany is a missionary season of the church year. We realize that the light that comes at Christmas is to be shared in every place, in every dark corner, for every broken heart, for every tribe and color and language, for every location, for every piece of this created order. The light of the world is meant for all, for everywhere, for every place, for every time. I was at a church meeting somewhere a long time ago, and it was a conference or gathering of preachers. Hey, you know how we get together, tell jokes and have wonderful worship and all that kind of stuff. We tell jokes that we can't tell in church. You know, I couldn't repeat the jokes that we tell, we preachers. Not in church. No, but anyway, we have marvelous worship. Marvelous worship. And I remember this one time we were worshiping together and we started singing a song that I guess I should have known. because the words were written by Charles Wesley many, many years ago, but somehow I had missed it. And we started to sing. And there were new words for me. And the words went like this: walk in the light, beautiful light. Come where the dewdrops of mercy shine bright. Oh, shine all around us by day and by night. Jesus, the light of the world. Well, in this worship service were a large group of African American women pastors. And they knew that song. And they sort of led it. And as we sang, they started moving around and they started clapping, and we'd say, walk in the light, and they would clap. I'd like to try that. If I say walk in the light, and the clapping has to be crisp and has to be quick, okay? It can't be slow. So walk in the light, beautiful light. See, that's what was happening. And they were clapping, and we were all singing, walk in the light, beautiful light. Come where the dewdrops of mercy shine bright. And as the clapping and the singing, the room, it was like it was on fire. That's Epiphany. The light of the world, getting into the world, shining for every place, for every time, for every person. The light of the world, Jesus Christ, the light of the world. Now, before we read the scripture this morning, we had that remembering that if you try to save your life, you're going to lose it, but if you lose your life, you'll find it. And Epiphany reminds us that Jesus is the light of the world. Now, if you can find another light, let me know, will you? If you find a light for the world that shines brighter, if you can find for me a light that loves more, if you can find for me a life that forgives more, if you can find for me someone who can raise the dead to life, if you can find for me someone who can go into a place where everything is lost and dead and done and bring new life and new hope, new beginnings, let me know, will you? But I know you won't. There's no other light that can do what Jesus does. We have this audacious claim that this light is the light of the world. This light will make everything new. That's Epiphany. And then Epiphany comes to a close. Before we get to Lent, Epiphany comes to a close with this sort of bridge Sunday we call the Sunday of Transfiguration, this Sunday that we are gathered. And as you recall from the recent reading we had just a couple minutes ago, James and John and Peter are taken up to the mountain, and they're sleepy and almost fall asleep, and all of a sudden they look, and there is Jesus. And for this one moment, for this one brief, beautiful moment, they see him as he truly is, and he shines. The light in his life just shines through his face and radiates through his clothing. For this one moment, they see. But they don't understand. Peter wants to stay on the mountain. Oh, Lord, this is a great place. This is a wonderful moment. Let's build shelters. Let's stay here. Let's have crowds come. This will be better than Branson. Just let's have music and a good time and just celebrate being on the mountain. All this joy. And Jesus takes him down the mountain. Down the mountain. Because, you see, the whole purpose of Jesus' life is so that radiance, that goodness, that life can get in us. 1 John says, when he appears, we shall be like him. Now, folks, if you ever wondered what's happening to you, what's going to happen to your life, where's this all going to lead? What's going to be the end of the story? Where is my life going to finish? What's the conclusion? I have great news for you. We shall be like him. The full radiance of God that was in Jesus is in store, is our destiny. And so, you never want to give up. You never want, I know we despair and we get tired, and I get tired, and sometimes we feel so dry and lonely, and it seems like life is so hard, but don't stay there long. Don't stay there long, because the journey is going to take us to this place. We will be like him. But you see, Jesus had to take the disciples down the mountain, because that's where the glory gets into us. For a moment, they got to see the glory of Jesus on the mountain, but for the glory, for the life of Jesus to get into them, they had to go down the mountain. They couldn't stay up. They had to go down the mountain. And immediately what happens? As soon as they get down the mountain, there's a father screaming, crying out in human need for the healing of his son. God gets into us down the mountain in the midst of all this messiness and all of this struggle and all of this hardship and all of this work and everything that's going into our lives. All of that is going into the making up of God getting into us. The glory. The glory is not going to get into us on the mountain. The glory is going to get into us down the mountain. In the midst of the pain and the struggle and the hardship and the difficulty of life, God is bringing the glory. I had an opportunity to touch glory while I was in Texas. It was such a moving and wonderful and life-changing part of my history of my life, is to be connected down there on the border to these people. They're not coming in illegally. These are the people coming legally. Most of them are from Honduras. They have been processed. And so they are delivered by bus to downtown McAllen. And before the ministry there began, they were just on the streets. And so God's people came together and said, what are we going to do? And this Catholic Charities led, but all of these people from churches all over the place, all over the world, all over the country, are coming together to be a presence of ministry to these folks, and sometimes 200, 300, 400, 500 a day. I wanted to take more pictures, but in fact, the first day I was there, I did. Did you see the pictures of your coats being unloaded by these two beautiful, these gorgeous teenage girls? Aren't they beautiful? And then as soon as I took the picture, someone tapped me on their shoulder and said, "We don't take pictures." So I had to put my camera away. But the pictures are in my heart to give to you today. Let me tell you about it. Just, glory is something that just sort of happens. It's like the disciples on the mountain. It's so quick. It comes and it goes, but you see it, and there it is, a picture in your mind. I was walking down a crowded hallway. It's an abandoned nursing home that's been taken over, and there's another story there about that, which I'll tell later. But I'm walking down this crowded hallway, and there's a 3-year-old child, and she's holding her mother's hand, and she just looks over her shoulder, and she looks up at me and smiles. Well, let me tell you something. It was like hot butter on a summer day. This beautiful child. How did she get here? And what's going to happen to her? And where is she going to go? And when she gets on a bus, who's going to be there to welcome? And what's her life going to be like? She's 3 years old, and she's gorgeous. And she smiled, a smile that just breaks your heart. And so I gave a prayer. God, just hold this one in your care. Be with her. Watch her, guide her, wherever she goes. A smile was a glimpse of glory down the mountain for me. And then, of course, there was the people I worked with. They come. You maybe saw a picture of a 92-year-old doctor, and I was so, I don't know what the right word is. He outworked me. He's 92 years old. I was so embarrassed. Have you ever been outworked by someone who was so much older than you are? He stands there 6 hours a day at a table. I can't do it. He comes 6 days a week. He's a Mennonite from South Dakota. And he comes down for 6 months. His brother was an eminent New Testament scholar at Harvard Divinity School. He had this marvelous practice in South Dakota. He's now a widow. He comes down to Texas and he works 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, standing at a table making sandwiches. And I just looked at him and saw the glory of God. If I could only be like this man. Who was the other one? There was somebody else. Oh, yeah. I've got to tell you, in Brownsville, Maria and Melba. Now, these are 2 retired school teachers. Actually, the older one, Maria, was English professor, and her daughter was an elementary teacher. They're both retired. And Maria now is in her 80s, and she's nearly blind. She can hardly see. And they were reading about all of the stories of these people who were trying to find a new life, and they were sleeping under bridges and so forth. And they said, "What can we do?" These 2 retired schools. What can we do? What can we do? And so both of them realized they could sew, so they started sewing pillows for children. And they eventually they found these fabrics with superheroes, Wonder Woman, things that kids like, And they started stuffing and sewing pillows. And now they've sewn 2,000 pillows, these 2 people. And folks around the country on Facebook and so forth have heard their story, and they'll send them a little money, or they'll send them some garments to sew with. And just as soon as they run out, something shows. You know how that God's work is like that. As soon as it runs out, somebody sends something else. You don't have to do great things down the mountain. We're just ordinary people. We're not going to be in the news. Nobody's going to write up our story. We're just ordinary folks, but down the mountain, you just do what you can. God will give you somebody to love. You know that? You don't have to worry about it. Down the mountain, there's somebody to help, somebody to write to give encouragement and cheer, somebody to forgive, somebody to encourage, somebody to bless. How many of you are praying for someone today? I'm going to raise my hand. Look at that. See? Look at, we're all praying for somebody, aren't we? Down the mountain, we see God's glory on the mountain in Jesus. But God's glory gets into us, down where we are. A little girl smiles, and the glory of God shines. A 92-year-old doctor makes a sandwich, and you look at him and say, I see Christ shining. Two older teachers, retired, sit at their table, their kitchen table, and they stuff pillows. And the glory of God shines through the world. Shine, children. That's why God's put you here. You can shine. You can love somebody. And when you do what God gives you to do, when you just are faithful to wherever God has placed you to love and serve wherever you are, that glory will radiate through your life and shine for all the world to be blessed. And God's people said, Amen.